Like you, it's not just TV, it's life. PBS Hawaiʻi, home is here.
Local broadcasts of Insights on PBS Hawaiʻi are made possible by the support of viewers like you. Mahalo, and by Carl Smith Ball, providing legal services throughout Hawaii and the Pacific since 1857, making a positive difference in the communities where we live and work. Hawaii's roadways are becoming more dangerous. Traffic deaths have seen a dramatic increase, more than doubling compared to this time last year. What is behind this alarming rise? Are current safety measures enough? What more needs to be done to protect drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians? Join the conversation next on Insights on PBS Hawaiʻi.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaiʻi. I'm Yanji Denise. So far in 2025, more than 70 people have been killed in traffic-related incidents. That is a dramatic increase from this time last year, with fatalities here on Oahu more than doubling. Currently, we are in what first responders call the 100 deadliest days of summer, which historically has seen the most traffic fatalities. So what is behind the dramatic upswing in these fatal numbers, and what's being done to make the roads safer? We look forward to your participation in tonight's show. You can email or call in your questions, and you'll find a live stream of this program at pbshawaiʻi.org and on the PBS Hawaiʻi YouTube page. Now to our guests. Ed Sniffen is the director of the State Department of Transportation. The agency is responsible for planning, designing, constructing, and operating our state roadways. Prior to this post, he was the deputy director for DOT's Highways Division. Lola Irvin is the administrator of the Chronic Disease Prevention and Health Promotion Division for the State of Hawaii's Department of Health. She works on policy systems and environmental change to promote health and well-being for all Hawaii residents. John Nouchi is the Deputy Director of the City and County of Honolulu's Department of Transportation Services. He's worked in transportation in Hawaii for the last 25 years and has a degree in urban planning from the University of Southern California. And Major James Slayter is the commander of the Traffic Division for the Honolulu Police Department. He served in the department for nearly 3 decades and previously was the head of the Vehicular Homicide Section. Thank you all for being here tonight. This is a very difficult topic, and I think, Ed, I want to start with you. You know, we talk about the numbers, and I know that behind each of those numbers is a story and an individual, and so I don't want to, diminish any of that. But broadly speaking, let's talk about those numbers. What have you seen, and where are we at this moment?
At this time, we're 74 fatalities statewide, as opposed to 56 last year, so 18 ahead of last year's curve. If we progress this way, we'll trend to about 125 dead by the end of this year, and about half of them dead on Oahu. Very difficult for us to talk about as numbers, but it's the best way for us to get that information across everybody. When we look at these numbers, most of them have speed as a contributing factor. Most of them have DUIs in there as well, and all of them have distraction in some way, shape, or form. So overall, we're seeing that there's a less awareness on the roadway, a lot more dangerous behaviors than we've seen before, and that's with drivers, pedestrians, and bicyclists. Every user of the facility. And
when you say distractions, are we talking about people on the phone, texting? What do you mean?
So distractions with their phones, doing other things in the car that they shouldn't be. Some are eating, some are shaving in the car. All those types of things that are occurring that you can see on the roadway every day. I don't think I can go a day driving in peak traffic without seeing some kind of distraction next to me. It's usually a person on their phone, kind of trying to pace traffic and look up and down. I don't think everybody understands how far you can go in your vehicle, just at 30 to 40 miles per hour, looking down for a second. It's very dangerous and something we've got to stop doing.
Wow. Major Slayter, I want to hear from you about these 100 deadliest days. What is it about this part of the year that makes it so dangerous?
So that was actually derived from a national study where they looked at all 50 states, not just Hawaii. And what they were looking at is that they actually saw a spike in teen driver deaths during those 100 days, and a lot of that can be attributed to the fact that students are out of school. We do have younger teen drivers who are inexperienced on our roadways. You have a lot more celebrations going on, whether it be graduation, just parties, festivities, gatherings. So those are all going to lead to a higher count in the fatalities. Luckily, we haven't seen a spike every year here in Hawaii, but that does not mean that we're not susceptible to it. So we got to keep that in mind. So I actually like headlines like that. I like names like that and titles because it just gets the conversation going. It gets us all thinking about traffic safety. You know, it's a really good opportunity to have a talk with your teen driver, have a talk with your younger driver, explaining how it's important for them to remain alert, sober, definitely, right? Not distracted, focus on the road. And like Ed said, distraction is a huge problem, right? And you have the three, I think we talked about it before, you have manual, visual, and cognitive distractions, right? So you got your manual where you're taking your hands off the wheel. That could be for the infotainment system, it could be your cell phone, it could be, like Ed said, shaving, eating, right? That's taking your hands off the wheel. The other one is visual. You're taking your eyes off the road, right? Whether I'm having a conversation with my passenger, I'm looking at that infotainment system in my car, looking at my GPS, right? I'm not paying attention. And the last is cognitive, where you're not thinking about the drive. You're not paying attention, right? Maybe you had a bad day at work. Maybe you had an argument with your spouse. You're not focused on what you're actually doing. So the interesting part is the cell phone is the most deadly because it involves all three of those categories.
That's so interesting, and I think so many of us, you know, we drive in a very geographically limited area, so we're driving the same route again and again. I'm driving to work, I'm driving to school, I'm driving to the same grocery store I always drive through, and so it feels so routine that you do kind of zone out.
Exactly.
Yeah. John, I want to hear from you. From the city's perspective, what's the common denominator that you see with these incidents?
First of all, I want to start by saying that, you know, at the city, as we've watched our numbers tick up, especially on this island, we are at a high right now, and definitely we don't like where that's going. But I just wanted to make a statement that we take every death that happens on our roadway, every occasion of traffic violence, we take that almost personally. And we've had deep discussions in our transportation department to just try to identify root causes, like we were just talking about now, like distraction. Our Complete Streets administrator came up with something that I think we've never talked about before. People are too busy. People are oversubscribed. And I think what everybody tries to do is to magically fit 2 hours worth of activities into like 1 hour. And if you know the drive is gonna take 45 minutes, you give yourselves 30 minutes to do it. And you can't do that. You cannot create, you cannot synthesize time. So you're already putting yourself under a pressure cooker to perform something that is impossible. So we just need people to think about, program enough time for you to get the things done. Everybody's busy. Kids have a lot going on a day-to-day basis. Parents have a lot going on. Everybody has places to go. And nobody has any spare time for any disruption to that. And I think when that pressure is upon everybody, that is not when everybody performs at their best.
You know, what you said is so wise because I think that we all do feel so busy, right? And so 5-minute delay suddenly compounds that lateness. And at the same time, you're trying to squeeze in a work phone call and maybe send a quick text or a quick email. And so it's this sort of pressure cooker that you're talking about. That seems like a larger systemic problem than just adding another, you know, red light camera.
Yeah. And I think that was a significant moment for us when we thought about that. How much time do you actually give yourself to arrive to something on time? And why do we disable ourselves with that? By never giving ourselves a fair chance to get something done and then being really upset when we fail at it. And those are the kinds of things. And when you add on all the other layers of distraction, and you talked about the routineness of the places that we go, and the fact, I think people are very cloistered in their vehicles. You know, you sit in your vehicle, and now the vehicles are designed such that, you know, you don't hear the outside world, right? And I think that further disconnects you from what's actually happening on the roadways. And we have so many things. We have to ask ourselves the question, our vehicles are safer. We have many technological advancements that stop us from rear-end crashes and lane departures and all these kinds of things. Yet, why are we having rising fatalities?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Lola, you're part of Oahu's Vision Zero Action Plan. Tell us about the plan and how the Department of Health has a role in this.
So in the Department of Health, we want everyone to have the opportunity to really have optimal health. And that means having an environment that is supportive of physical activity, supportive of those social connections. And so when John talked about, you know, we try to maximize our time. Well, what we've done also is engineered physical activity and healthy living out of our day. And so if we can change the environment so that we can go out, walk, bike, choose those healthy options, and then we can time for that. And when we do that, we will also have eyes and awareness of each other. And so we are working towards building those environments and really knowing people make mistakes, right? And like Ed said, and he said it emotionally, and I agree with him, there is no acceptance of fatality. There's no loss of life that's acceptable. And that means we have to build our environment so that we can make a mistake and Lola is not going to kill John, who's walking across the street, because he's designed the street and the system in a way that I will be aware and I will be alert. I also like to tell our policymakers, watch out for that old lady with the pink backpack riding the bikie bike. That's me. So I want to tell John thank you for building also the bike lanes, right? Because that's a built environment that's been designed for maximum safety for me because of maximum awareness of the driver knowing I'm there, slowing them down, but also differentiating, right? This lane is for the bicyclists. You have these lanes. And it gives me that default option. I don't have to get in a car. And then Ed can have that parking spot because I'm going to park the bikie bike and not take the parking lot, spot. So yeah, we're really into making sure that we have the built environment that supports just the maximum optimal health for our keiki and kupuna. Because if we design it for our keiki and kupuna, it's going to be good for all of us.
Yeah. Ed, I want to ask you, there's a question from Dave here in Maui. Is there any scientific evidence that speed bumps decrease fatalities?
Oh, significantly. Absolutely significantly.
Before you get into that, just sort of a wider question, and definitely want to get to Ed's point, or to Dave's point too, but you've added speed bumps. We know that the red light cameras are here. The speed cameras are, I believe, in their trial phase. And so you've added all these layers are what's supposed to make the roads safer. Is there any evidence that those investments are actually paying off?
Absolutely. So we have about 264 throughout the state right now. Evidence shows that we have 70% reduction in speed in those areas, 75% reduction in crashes in those areas, and an 8% chance of a fatality. In all the 264 areas that we've put in those speed humps, one person died, just one, since 2019. Evidence shows that people are dying on the system, not where the speed humps are. That's significant evidence for everybody. And that people complain about them, mean they're working. I mean, that's the biggest thing. When somebody calls me to complain that this speed hump is in the area and I can't go the speed limit or the speed that I want to, great, then it's working for me. Overall, what these speed humps are supposed to do, as Lola had said, people are gonna make mistakes. In the past, we used to say our system is 100% safe, but for the people the 55% who are driving drunk, but for the 35% who are excessively speeding, and but for the 35 to 40% that are distracted. So we said, stop doing that and everybody's safe. Didn't work. We tried to increase fines, didn't work. We tried to appeal to hearts and minds, it didn't work. So now I'm telling everybody, I know people are gonna drive drunk. I know they're gonna speed and I know they're gonna be distracted. So I'm gonna put something in your way to make sure you wake up or make sure that you can slow down in those areas, especially in areas where we know there's gonna be conflicts between bicyclists and pedestrians. If everybody looks at where we have these speed humps, it's where we have schools. Anytime there's a state crossing near a school, you're gonna see a speed hump or a raised crosswalk. If you see areas between communities where there's connecting to a large driver, like a beach or a park, you're gonna see a raised pedestrian crosswalk in those areas. All those areas where we know we're gonna have plenty kids and kupuna walking across, you're gonna see a speed hump there.
What was the percentage you cited on drunk drivers?
In the past, it was between 45 to 55% of our fatalities caused by drunk drivers.
Wow.
Huge numbers. And this is the thing, in the past, we've always looked at our fatalities on our roadways as transportation issues. We thought we had a drunk driving issue. We don't. We have a substance abuse issue in our society that's flowing onto our highways. We thought we had excessive speeding on our highways. We don't. We have people in our community who don't care about enforcement, and it's flowing onto our highways. We thought we had distraction on our highways. Really, we have a hyper connectivity society-wide that flows onto our highways. We have issues that in our society that are flowing into our areas. We thought we could focus everything on our roadways and fix it. We can't. So we brought in behavioral scientists now to help us redesign our approach to things, and it's requiring us to get deeper into the communities to ensure we can start addressing these issues. Biggest thing is enforcement, but Slate only has so many officers to put out there. We have so many cams that we can put out there. There's still areas of the system that are not protected by enforcement in the different areas. we're trying to make sure that we can see how best to enforce. In the past, we thought, let's go raise the fines. But we're in a society now where people are paying $12 for a shake from McDonald's for somebody else to pick it up for them and drop it off their house. So the money is not the thing anymore. The thing is the impact of me driving down there and coming back home. So we're working with the judiciary now to see if we can change the way judges assign an impact. Instead of just a fine, I would love for them to assign them to go to driver's school. Driver's ed school for 6 hours for 2 Saturdays. I think that'll impact people more than the $150 they might have to pay in a fine. If somebody has to spend their time that's worth $12 for 10 minutes or for a shake, maybe that'll start hitting people.
One of the things that, as part of our Complete Streets and Vision Zero program that we had at the city that we've done, and we got probably a lot of feedback on, more than we expected, neighborhood signs that people can put up in their own neighborhoods. One of them says, slow down or speed hump, your choice. And that leads to this idea that there is a sequence of how things work. You know, we have a posted speed limit. People don't obey it. So we send a letter asking police to help us enforce that. They'll go out and do spot enforcement. When that doesn't work, what do we do next? We try to engineer improvements to the roadway. And when that doesn't work, you know, Ed has helped us out in many places. I mean, and Ed is like my safety warrior. And, you know, we all sitting here at the table, I think, are warriors for safety. But there's that step of, if you can't do it, I mean, I hate saying this, but we'll have to do it for you.
And the speed humps may be the way. Enforcement could be another tool. What do you think about the efficacy of enforcement? We know that HPD is not at full capacity when it comes to the number of officers. Given the staffing challenges, you know, how much enforcement are you able to do? Are you hindered by that? And how much more enforcement do you think we would need to move the needle for what Ed is talking about? Or is he right that we need to send everybody to driver's ed?
I actually love the driver's ed idea because we had talked about that for years. I can't tell you how many long conversations I've had with both gentlemen where we discuss different ideas and things we can do to try to curb this issue. Everything from the speed humps around schools, right? We've been talking about enforcement where it's virtual, talking about design and everything. And they put a tremendous amount of effort into making sure that the engineering is sound, that the idea that they have behind it is excellent, but it's a matter of personal responsibility for each person who's driving or biking or walking. Now, for the enforcement part of it, staffing does play a part. And Ed is right. I don't have enough officers for every street on the island. I can tell you that it does work. Take, for instance, earlier in the year, February, March, we had several pedestrian deaths along Nimitz, Ala Moana area, down that corridor. I actually moved all my nighttime enforcement resources to there, my solo bike resources to there, and we just hammered that area and it wasn't to give tickets, and it was education. Slow people down, remind them that there's pedestrians in the area, remind them that we do have residentially challenged individuals that might be crossing in areas where you're not expecting them, so slow down, pay attention, focus on the road. In that 1 month period, we had 18 operations, over 900 citations, over 300 warnings, and 11 arrests. Believe it or not, 8 of them were for impaired drivers. This is in broad daylight. This is not nighttime. This is not late night after the club. Substance abuse problem, right? We've got individuals that are out there driving next to us, driving past us as we're pedestrians waiting on the corner. You don't even realize it, but they're impaired, right? And your life is at risk because they're making very bad choices. But we also know that just having an officer there, it does help. I do it all the time. Light on the car, pull up, individual, oh, seatbelt goes on, phone goes away, they slow down. That's terrific, but why does it take me or one of my officers to slow you down? What does it take one of us to make you put your phone away? Why does it take one of us to have you put your seatbelt on? Right? We know that this is old news. We've been saying this for decades, right? The 3 biggest things, impairment, speed, and distraction. And we always say, wear your personal safety devices, wear a helmet, it saves lives. People still do the opposite. But when they see us, it stops. If we could put an officer on every corner, I would be happy to do so every day, 24/7.
When we're looking at these fatalities, are they primarily pedestrians, primarily drivers or passengers? What's the breakdown? Who is getting the most hurt?
Sadly, we have seen the biggest numbers in our pedestrians. You know, this year alone, we have 16 already, right? And that's sad, right? And in our best year, in the last 20 years, 10 pedestrians. That's 10 people. And we're sitting here saying that's a good year, right? Those numbers are not just numbers, those are people. They're family, friends, coworkers, associates that aren't going to be with us in the next holiday season. They're not going to be with us at the next event. We got to change the culture. We got to change the mindset. I don't know what it's going to take to shift it. I love the fact that Ed always thinks out of the box, right? I love the first day we were at Poly Highway. We barely knew each other. We had a fatality. An individual, 2 cars stopped on Poly Highway, but the 3rd lane was open. Elderly pedestrian crossing. The 3rd vehicle, oh, I don't know why they're stopping. I'm going to continue going, goes right around, kills the pedestrian. We were there. Next thing you know, he puts in speed humps. I drive there every day. I hate speed humps. However, I know it saves lives. I know it's working. Everybody slows down, and we don't have fatalities on those speed humps, so it works. It's a sacrifice I'm willing to make if I know it's going to save lives, right? But he's thinking out of the box, and the best part is he's bringing in a behavioral scientist to try and figure out what's the psychology that's going on here. What can we do to shift behavior? What can we do to shift the mindset? Because honestly, a lot of people who are advocates weren't advocates until they lost somebody, right? For us in traffic division, we're advocates because we see the devastation, we see the deaths, we see the families. So it's important.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Eric in Kailua says, have we become so immune to reports of increased traffic fatalities on our roads that these stats just don't resonate in the community? How do we combat that? I mean, John, I'd love to hear what you think about that.
First of all, resounding yes. Resounding yes. So last year, I think we had 52 fatalities.
54.
54. So basically 1 person a week in the year. You look at, if we had 54 of any other kind of death in any other kind of circumstance, we would say that's too many. But we just look at the number and maybe we think, oh, it'll get better. But the fact is everybody needs to double down on their efforts to pay attention, and there are cascading consequences. If people cannot wait at a traffic signal without picking up their phone and doom scrolling through their social media, that results in maybe when the light turns green, they don't go, the person in the back. Again, we've never been a honking town, and I would like to die on that hill, but people honk all the time now. But you know what, we don't honk to say, hey, what's up? We don't honk to say, hey, how you? We honk to say, hey, pay attention. And I don't want us to turn into a honking town, but then it starts to escalate their feeling of road rage. And when everybody goes, the person in the back feels justified to floor it and maybe do something to show the person in front of them that they were wrong. And there's no winners in any of this. To get all hyped up about something, to get angry about something that could possibly lead to bad decisions and bad outcomes, traffic violence. And that's really what we've started to look at this. We don't look at it as crashes or accidents. It's violence on our roadway.
Yeah,
Sadly, that apathy is not just a Hawaii thing. At this time, even though we're high this year, we're middle of the road in the nation. 42,000 people die every year, and we just poo-poo it away. We, in general in society, every year when we see the 102 fatalities in Hawaii, it just happens until it happens to you or your family. For us, I think all of us on this table, we want to make sure that this doesn't happen to anybody else's family. We see too many people who've been destroyed by this, who survived the crash, who were just destroyed by this.
And nobody talks about them.
So I'd love to see this stop. The difficulty is we're going to do as much as we can, but we cannot be everywhere. We cannot put speed humps everywhere. We cannot put infrastructure everywhere. But everybody can make the right decision today to make sure we can move forward in the right way tomorrow.
Yeah, Lola, what do you think the Department of Health's role is in that? I mean, we're thinking about speed humps, we're thinking about traffic planning, we're thinking about enforcement. Where does the Department of Health factor in?
So the Vision Zero campaign we have right now is to encourage our public to also think in terms of, oh, it could be my mom, it could be my cousin's daughter, it could be my auntie walking her dog. And so to make that personal, and also then to make it societal, to share the road. So we are encouraging people, when those complete streets designs come to your road, to your neighborhood, go and participate, be part of the change, and share the road, right? So I lived in Maui, and I used to walk the kids to the school, in the neighborhood school, and there were no sidewalks. And when you push a baby in a stroller and there are no sidewalks, and it's a car-oriented road, it's awful to know that my child will be hit before me, right? And so sometimes I would get in the car just because I was so afraid. And so Ed's got Safe Routes to School program under him. And so we need to really rethink and accept those changes. We have to think this is for our keiki. This is to make it so that we can have these livable communities. And that's why public health is involved, because we want people to live long, extended years of life, free from disease, right? And you start as a twinkle in somebody's eye, and hopefully you die with a twinkle in your eye, and, not in a fatal crash. So I think I know the reason we're involved is because we want people to embrace that change.
Right.
And so that's why we've got the Vision Zero campaign going on.
Nancy from Waikiki, and I would love for you to take this. John talked about people getting frustrated, right? The car in front of them is not going, so they're going to honk, and then the guy behind them decides like it's okay to fishtail through the intersection. Nancy says, have there been any studies that point to anger issues, road rage as a cause of accidents? I don't know that you can cite any studies in particular, but what do you see in the behavior of drivers and the attitude of drivers that may be contributing to some of these incidents?
I actually like that. That's good, Nancy. So for me, I do agree 100% that we have seen a whole lot more anger on our roadways and a lot less patience. Growing up on the Big Island, never had that kind of stuff. Everybody threw shakas, everybody took time, everybody knew each other, and if you were impatient, you're gonna get it either from mom and dad or auntie, uncle, or somebody, right? Like, it's a tight-knit community, everybody knew each other, and we all just took our time, we got where we wanted to go. I never saw fights over driving, right? But now we see it all the time, and it's really pushed out on social media because it's it's clickbait. But the sad part is that a lot of what we do on our roadways, it comes down to just having a little bit of common decency, a little bit of patience, show some aloha, and and like we've been trying to push, the aloha is not only just throwing up the shaka, but it's having a little grace when you're out there driving, understanding that, hey, somebody's in a rush. Simple things you can do. Be predictable. Use your turn signals. Slow down. Leave some space between you and the vehicle in front. Learn about defensive driving, right? Learn about just being a little bit more patient. Use breathing techniques. Use things to calm yourself down, right? There are a lot of things you can do to just bring your blood pressure down a little bit, calm down just a little bit, and just take your time. Not get so upset, not get so irate, because we all do have to share the road. And I can't tell you how many times somebody's walking and they're walking too slow and people are getting upset. Say, it's okay. Those couple seconds that is the difference. It means all the world that you're letting this person make it home to their family tonight.
There should never be a reason for anybody on the roadway, whether you're in a car or on a bike or a pedestrian, to teach somebody a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're so, we've ventured into that spot where we're super transactional. Somebody punched me, I punch them back. I think that's what we're doing. Somebody wrongs us, it's not enough to shake it off. Like Major was saying, it's like, I gotta show them. Yeah. And that's a pivot that, I love what you said about how you grew up and how the village, the community was responsible to put you in your place if you did something. Maybe that's not enough now. Maybe we don't do enough of that now. But nobody likes to be called out, and I think that's what causes the conflict. That's what causes the anger. But at the same time, we are not, even if your village is responsible for you, you have to be responsible for you. And I think that's where a lot of people are just not taking enough personal responsibility. And like Ed threw out a number earlier about, what did you say, 102?
Fatalities, yep.
In a year.
Yep.
And if you look at that, I was saying earlier about how 102 of anything is not acceptable. If 102 people, if we had a plane crash or something, every year, 102 people perished, we would have a long time ago figured out what is the root cause? How do we get to this? Who's responsible? This is not acceptable. So I think we're all sitting here saying none of this is acceptable. And we just need to call on everybody to be responsible for themselves.
Yeah, it is terribly frustrating because what you're saying is absolutely correct. And I think that there's also some anonymity when you're driving. In the same way that people are keyboard warriors on social media and write things that they would never say to your face, a lot of people behave in traffic in a way that they may not behave if they were standing next to you in line at the grocery store, right? But one of the things, Ed, that your department has done, I see that the traffic signs that say, slow down, don't drink and drive, remember this person, remember that person. Tell us a little bit about that campaign and why you decided to take that stance.
Absolutely. As I talked about before, it's very difficult for families to get through the loss of a loved one. And I give a lot of credit to those families who become strong advocates in their communities after they lose that special someone in their lives. Kalana Warner, high school student, just graduated, just ready to go to college, was killed by a person going 97 miles per hour who was high and drunk out of her mind. Hit and killed. His father, who went out there, who saw the crash occur, who went out there on the street, told the story to our legislature to make sure a bill was passed, that he was just happy that he was lucky enough to get there in time so that his son could die in his arms. That story moved a lot of people to ensure that Kalana's law went through. And we want everybody to understand that story, understand how painful it would be for a person to see their son, a person they raised all their lives, die in their arms, and just be happy about that.
And Uncle Eddie comes out every time.
Yep.
Kalana's dad comes out for every one of these. He is the safety warrior.
And same with Chanda Park, whose daughter Azalea was killed. Instead of wallowing in misery, like any of us could, she started a business that allows people to go out and drink and have fun and whatever. She'll go and pick you up, and she'll bring a person with her so to make sure they can get your car too. So there's no worry about leaving your car behind at some establishment. They'll take you both home.
No worry, no excuse.
It's amazing, the types of things. And we want to make sure we honor the fatalities that we had in the system. We want to make sure that the people understand that this is a person. This is not just a number. It's not just a statistic. This was a person that was loved by many, many people that we lost.
Wow, that's very moving. I'm interested in what it feels like. You talked about being that your officers are the ones who respond and who see all of this. This must take a toll on the first responders.
100%. VHS, our vehicular homicide section, they have one of the most difficult jobs, right? They have to go to the scene. They have to basically take emotion out of it, and they got to really look at the science and figure out. I mean, we're going to be the voice for people who don't have a voice anymore. So we have to figure out what happened, how did it happen, and we need to make sure that the evidence is sound to make sure that there's justice, right? That there's prosecution. But it doesn't matter. No matter how much justice, prosecution, you can't bring them back, right? And so for us, it's hard because this is in your mind for the rest of your life, right? The things you've seen. Shanda Park, I was there that night, right? So for Azalea, these are difficult moments, but the officers, it does take a toll. And it's something that wears on you over time.
There are some questions that I want to get to. Here's one from Tony and Eva says, with all that they are doing to slow traffic down, it doesn't seem to be working. Restrictions due to construction and other things are impeding traffic and causing frustration on the roads. Ed, I'd love for you to take this question.
That's not what's causing frustration. I mean, statistics show around the nation. Since 2009, our anxieties all went up. Just so happens that's when social media started. Our anxieties all went up, our patience all went down. We are getting onto the roadway with a lack of patience and high anxiety. High anxiety means a lot shorter tempers on the roadway. As John talked about, that machismo that's causing people to challenge each other out there. I'm sure anytime you drive out there, as soon as you see one person blow by you at 25 miles an hour, there's going to be two more because they want to show just how fast they can go too. Those are the things that are occurring out there. And again, there's nothing I'd rather do than stop putting in these speed humps, stop putting in red light and speed cams. I don't need them. I don't need them. We all as a society need them right now because there's nothing else we can do to ensure that we can stop people from dying. If we had 0 fatalities for the next 25 days, I'll take them all out. I mean, we don't need them. We can show as a society that we made the right decisions to move forward in the right way. But there's no way in hell I'm not going to do anything when I see these types of numbers going up. And again, that's not where people are dying. When we have speed cams, where we have red light cams, where we have raised crosswalks, nobody's dying there. So is the answer putting in more? Does that mean that if we didn't have them in, we'd have 150 fatalities now rather than the 74? I don't know, but I'm not going to chance it.
Okay, there's a question here, and I'd love for you to take this one, John, from Justin, who says, I live in McCully, and a traffic circle installed by TTS got rid of all the speeding by Waiʻola shave ice, made that intersection safer. How can the community request safety improvements like that? I know some of them are city projects and some of them are state projects, so I'm not sure which of the two put in that particular circle, but can a community come to the city or come to the state and say, put in a traffic circle, give me a speed hump, we want it?
So we talk about this a lot. We love for the community to come to us and tell us. They live there, they see it every day. They have the knowledge of just, people looking out their window or experiencing things as they go up and down the street, whether they're walking, biking, or driving. What we ask for them to do is tell us exactly what the problem is. If it's speeding, tell us they're speeding. And then we can come back to that neighborhood and say, we could do any number of things. We can do edge of pavement markers, we can do delineators, we can do a traffic circle. If there's not, if there's enough room, we can do raised crosswalks, speed humps. We have a pretty big toolkit now. And some of that is we can do a quick build, which is what we did in McCully. And there was a certain amount of satisfaction there because, whenever you do something new, people have a hard time adjusting to change.
Well, and traffic circles are not that common here.
Right. And people always say, the problem with the traffic circles is nobody knows how to use it. And I'm like, if we had 100 more, then it's incumbent on people to learn how to use it. And if you don't know how to use it and you're driving on the road, you better learn. And it's not somebody needs to tell you about it. We will try to help explain how these work, but again, personal responsibility. I love to hear that the whole conversation has changed. So I've been doing this role since 2016. And when we started doing curb extensions, pop-outs in certain places like Chinatown or our first speed humps in certain communities, everybody lost their mind. They're like, what are we doing? And now we hear more, everybody's speeding, we need speed humps. And here's the thing, we can't put speed humps everywhere. There are some standards we need to be aware of by engineering. We can't put them on hills of a certain slope and things like that. But we love to hear from the neighborhoods firsthand. What do they see? What do they experience? And we can come in to the extent that we can, given the space on the roadway, given just safety and other things, what we can do. We don't want to talk about, we'd rather not focus on what we can't do, but we'd rather focus on what we can do. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you don't have much latitude to do things, but sometimes we can. You look at some of our neighborhoods now, they've been transformed. I mean, I think like Village Park is a good one. We had wide streets, we had hills, we had, people speeding, we had a lot of, certain types of crashes. But we were able to engineer and put in traffic circles and speed humps and raised crosswalks and things like that. And they fit into the context of the neighborhood very well. And, construction is expensive, but we can do these quick builds that lead into a graduated form of a permanent solution.
There's a question here from Timothy. Lola, I'd love for you to take this one. Why aren't we aggressively incentivizing public employees to embrace buses, bikes, or even their living room couch working from home instead of stubbornly returning to gridlock? I know that there are a lot of initiatives to try to get people to use different alternatives. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, we are encouraging people to use public transportation. We're also encouraging people to use the biggie bikes. We do have telework opportunities. We do have flexible schedules. And I think people have to rethink their transportation. So yes, we are working on it. And we want people to integrate physical activity into their day, right? So only about 1/4 of adults get enough physical activity, and only about 1/4, less than 1/4 of our teens get enough physical activity. And then of course, obesity continues to rise. And so does diabetes and pre-diabetes. Most of our adults in Hawaii have hypertension. And so when we think about that disconnectedness and the anger behind the wheel, if we would use public transportation and be connected to people, or walk if they can, bike if they can, it would be better for them mentally as well as physically. So we are encouraging it, and we'll keep working on it. That's a policy piece. And so
There's
it's a great question.
There's a question from Chris and Kailua. I want to briefly give you this one, John, and then I have one for you, Major. I'm a bicycle rider, and I find that every time I'm out, even in the bike lane, I feel like it's very unsafe. I even have to stop and walk my bike because people in cars at red lights are sometimes yelling at each other, and I am extra cautious. It seems like people don't care about other people on the road. It's gotten worse in the last few years. I know that sometimes you yourself ride a bicycle. Do you feel safe out there?
As a bicyclist, I think we have to make choices. And it sounds like Chris is very well informed in saying, when I don't feel safe, I do something different. So I rode a bike here today. And part of that was finding a route that was suitable for me to get here. And it's experience over time. But you know, with our Complete Streets philosophy, anytime we touch a roadway, we consider what we can do to make it equitable across all modes, whether you're a pedestrian, a bike, a car, a bus, a truck, you know, a large truck. And that is a city ordinance that we have to comply with. So things get better over time. As we touch roadways, I think some will celebrate bike lanes and better walking paths. It's not just bike lanes, but it's better use of our roadways. And some will curse it. And we're gonna, we definitely want to lean on Lola and her team to help us advocate for these things. And you know, these better streets make for better environments for all.
There's a question from Dr. Scott in Kaimuki who's asking, what are the demographics of the pedestrian involved in the fatalities? Do you have a sense of the age and the time of the incident? Sort of, when is the most danger? When is it the most dangerous, and who is the most in danger?
That's a good question. So the times fluctuate, and it's sad because, and I don't want to use this term because it sounds terrible, but it's like whack-a-mole for us, like trying to find a pattern that we can do something to stop it before it happens. But we can't find a pattern in the times, but I do know, I mean, we do a deep dive into each and every one of the fatal and critical collisions, and then we even look beyond that into serious collisions that just involve, you know, some bad injuries. Maybe you didn't quite reach that critical stage, but it's still something worth looking into. For the pedestrians, I do remember that there were a handful of residentially challenged individuals that did have a history of mental health crisis or substance abuse, so there could have been. Obviously, some of those are still ongoing, so we have to wait for toxicology results to come back for those. We also had a handful, sadly, of elderly pedestrians. And in those, a lot of them were using marked crosswalks, but whether or not they were visible at that time, early morning hours where maybe it's a little more, it's dawn or dusk. And like I said, we used that data to kind of drive our enforcement efforts for traffic division. And we did a really good job on that corridor of Nimitz and Ala Moana that I told you with all those stats, really great stats. But then the fatalities popped up out east, right? Or they pop out west. And then we move our resources out there and we're fighting the good fight, and then it pops up in Kaneohe, and then it pops up North Shore, right? And so but when you look at the stats, or not the stats, but all the details, and you try to find a pattern or something that's gonna help us predict where to put our enforcement, it's difficult because it varies greatly, times and everything else. But for pedestrians, I think the key is, one, if at all possible, use a marked crosswalk at a traffic signal. It's gonna help you tremendously. And when you are in that crosswalk and you're crossing, I understand you have that right away, but it's imperative that you keep looking both ways, right? Continue to look. I taught my kids this from a young age, right? And I still do it to this day, right? And it goes back to that poly highway crash, right? I mean, 2 vehicles stopped for you. You thought, right? A typical pedestrian would think, I'm good, but the traffic is stopping for me. It's safe, right? And then they kept walking thinking that they were safe, and they weren't, right? So it's one of those that you look left, you look right, you look left again, you enter the crosswalk. As you're going through the crosswalk, you continue to look left and right, making sure that there's no hazards coming. Try to make eye contact with the driver, throw up a little shaka, thanks for letting me go. You know, things like that. Wear bright reflective clothing, things that you can do to be a little bit more defensive when you're walking, right? And it's sad that we have to do that, but it's still something that, it's a good practice.
Yeah, Ed, I want to bring you into this just really briefly. I think that it's interesting what the mayor's saying, because we're focusing so much on drivers tonight, but we also have to think about pedestrians and how to make pedestrians walk more safely, if you will, or be more aware, because a lot of times, you see someone walking down the street and they're reading their phone.
I totally agree. And that's why the fatalities are not all equal. I mean, the fatality that started off this year was a pedestrian bending down the middle of the street, setting off a firework that got killed. I mean, those are the types of things. There were two pedestrians that were lying down in the road that were killed. Another that was walking on H2. That's someplace that the drivers wouldn't even expect them to be. We all, the drivers, pedestrians, and bicyclists, are all absolutely responsible for ourselves. We have to be. And I would love to be able to say, drivers, you be the ones that are responsible and everybody's okay. That's not the case. It's not going to work like that. We all got to be responsible for what we do. We got to be crossing at the right areas. We got to make sure that if this vehicle in this 3-lane roadway lets me pass, I'm not going to pass this vehicle unless I know the next one knows I'm there too. I have to be able to be aware of that, and make sure we train all of our kids to do so. That's the difficulty right now.
Maybe that's something to what Major was saying. Again, culturally, we don't like to make eye contact if we don't have to, right? Like if I'm a pedestrian and I'm crossing, I don't want to have this look like I'm staring down the person that's letting me cross or the person that's waiting for me to cross.
It feels too confrontational.
It kind of does. But that's why
Throw that shaka up.
that
It works
shaka
every
up.
time. I get a smile every time. I'll be crossing and I throw up the shaka and the person smiles, right? And if I'm driving and someone shakas me, I'm like, hey, right on, I shaka back, I'm happy. Like we're working together here.
That's why we allowed our buses to make a shaka on the back too. But that kind of pervasive aloha, I'll call it, that's the currency we have here.
So why do you think it works in places like Japan or in Sweden or some of the Scandinavian countries that have adopted these complete streets and vision zero, and some have never lost that share the road?
Well, look at the culture. I mean, look at the infrastructure in the society. It was built around bike and ped first. Then vehicles came in afterwards. We were set up to win the war with our infrastructure. Cars came in and we were sold as the American dream is freedom. We in the nation are locked into our freedom with our vehicles. So our roadways, everything was set up for cars. We're trying to adjust this whole system back to bike and ped. And that's the difficulty. We're looking at the rights of way, we're looking at the uses, making sure that we can address all of those things. And in general, it's gonna take a while, because not only was a roadway set up for that, all of our planning was set up for it too. If you look at our general plans and where everybody lives, we got 75 to 80% of our jobs in one area, and our bedroom communities every place else. Now, we not only guaranteed traffic, we guaranteed driving. Very difficult for a person in Kaneohe to say, I'm gonna drop off my kid every day and come back home every day on the bus to pick them up and take them to practice. It doesn't work. So unless we adjust our land use to make sure that our goods, services, and opportunities are within reach, bike and ped reach of where we work, where we play, very difficult to tell everybody get out of their cars. So that's where we are right now. And it's not an excuse. That's just where we're starting. And we got to make sure we start there and move forward. But for everybody else, that means the adjustments are not going to happen tomorrow. So don't count on the state and the county to fix your problems tomorrow so we stop killing people. We got to stop killing people tomorrow. And we can do that by making the decisions to drive the right way. Don't drink and drive. Give yourself enough time to get to your locations and make sure you're patient in traffic. That's the biggest thing you can do.
The bigger your vehicle, the more of a killer vehicle you have, right? If you're rushing.
That's the thing.
Large.
If we saw a person walking around the street waving a gun around, we would react immediately. We see people cutting in and out of traffic every day.
That's a weapon.
And it's just a thing. We let it go, and I don't think we should.
There's a question here. Why haven't we brought back the van cams? Why is it taking so long to install traffic cameras in busy intersections? This is Bob in Kahalu.
So everything requires legislative mandate. Since the van cams were outlawed, the legislature took that authority away from us and police. We got it back again to make sure we can put in these speed cams. We have them in place now. Now we got to make sure that we can work through our judiciary to ensure that we are ready for the amounts of tickets and citations that will come through. Right now, we're averaging about 30,000 a month.
30,000
just in the warning period.
Wow.
And there's no way the judiciary can take care of that unless we automate their system. So we're working directly with them to ensure that we can automate everything for them. The last thing I want to do is bog down the courts with all these that are coming through. But I'm going to extend this program. That's the thing. We have 10 now, and we're going to be expanding it because there are other areas. And it's not just me pushing these speed cams. Community members are asking, legislators are asking, because they see the speeds in their areas, they see the fatalities that occurred, and they want it to stop.
Can I point out something
Please, yes.
on this? Ed is such a good sport about this. We're not trying to gotcha anybody. We're not trying to aha anybody. All the cameras, all the intersections are well marked. Anytime they put out any new enforcement, automatic enforcement, press releases go out, the media generally covers it. Better yet, all the distractions, the wayfinding apps, Waze, Google Maps, Apple Maps, they warn you. Speed camera ahead, red light camera ahead. And there's still what? How many? 30,000?
30,000
It's
a month.
people choosing to not pay attention to that.
Yeah, and these are triggering at 11 miles per hour over the speed limit. So it's not like somebody going 1 mile per hour over. These are 11 plus.
That is a pretty stunning number, and it speaks to something that Michael here on the Big Island wrote. Said, no matter how many laws are made, the problem comes down to the fact that we have a public that doesn't want to obey the laws. Do you agree with that?
Partially. I mean, I've seen over time a difference, and I think it goes back to taking responsibility that John had talked about. I watch body-worn camera footage of my officers just because I'm making sure that, you know, what they're doing, it's in line with what we're trying to get across, and, you know, they're being professional. And my officers are tremendous at good customer service, and they're getting yelled at because people just, they don't want to be told what to do. And they're very frustrated that they're getting pulled over, even when they're just sometimes getting a warning, right? And they're so upset because you're delaying my travel, but you were traveling 70 in a 55, right? So the laws are there. I think it would be helpful if we're ensuring that they're forced to pay the fines, right? That if they are given jail time, that they do the jail time, things like that. So stricter on maybe in making sure that the penalties are served.
Lola, there's a question here from Sally. It says, in a couple of spots along Keolu Drive and Enchanted Lake in Kailua, there are flags at intersections that pedestrians can pick up and wave as they become more visible as they cross the street. That area is not high impact area. Perhaps that's one reason. Could we use more of those flags in other communities, do you think?
We could, but I think in terms of what's worked better are those humps and the roadway diets, right? So the 4 lanes, which when I moved into Keolu, the first week there was a kid hit on a bike because people drive too fast and treat it as an arterial road when it is actually a neighborhood. And they go above 25 miles per hour, and that's even too fast because we have a lot of keiki and kupuna on in our neighborhoods crossing the street. And the same first week, we had a dog that was killed and thrown into our yard. So I think in terms of the traffic calming that happened, that changed the 4 lanes into 2 with a middle turning lane, created bike lanes. That actually slowed down the traffic. And then every now and then there would be, you know, enforcement officer there, you know. But that made a huge difference. And it brought families on bikes, and it brought more awareness. And people say hi and hello. So in terms of that, you know, feeling neighborly, I see people, and we know each other by our dogs' names.
Oh my God, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, we're really, there's a comment here from Andrew and Kailua. We're almost out of time, but he says, we need to bring back aloha to the way we drive. We need to go with the flow and leave space for people to merge, breathe, get to where they're going safely, just like we'd hope they do for us. I hear some big sighs and some yes, so I'd love for both of you to briefly respond to that.
Absolutely, and you hit it on the head. You talked about anonymity in your vehicles. This is why I was so against putting up dark tinting all over the car. The more anonymous you can be, the less aloha you can have. I would love, if I could wave a wand tomorrow, I would make sure that everybody drives standard tomorrow, and everybody has their windows down all the time. I mean, then you would see that reconnectedness to the community around you that could help out and bring aloha back again.
Yeah, John.
That's basically key. This is what we need right now. We've lost that sense of aloha, and I'm not willing to accept that. Absolutely not willing to accept that we don't have aloha for each other, and we watch it erode every day. And it happens first on our roadways. It really does. I mean, I think we all think aloha means hello, goodbye, and love. But I think there's a certain amount of other nuances to aloha. There's courtesy, there's respect. There are those pieces of it that we are so encapsulated in our own life, in our own existence, that we forget that when we're participating on the roadway, everything we do, I could be walking in the road, I could be biking, I could be driving, it can drastically alter someone else's trajectory forever. And when we think about each of these fatalities, that our whole community suffers. It's not just that one person, it's the people that they know, it's their family and friends and future generations and everything that we are putting an abrupt stop to. And I feel for our first responders who have to go to these things and repeatedly see the product of bad decisions that didn't need to be. So again, aloha, there's probably a certain amount of responsibility attached to it. And we need to get back to that.
Yeah, I want to give you the last word to talk about that. You know, you talked about throwing a shaka, and I know it too. You know, I grew up on the Big Island as well, and when I go home to see my mom, people do drive a little slower, and you see the same people, and you throw the same, this is my driving shaka, the front hand up. I don't throw that one here on Oahu that much. So tell me a little bit about, you know, close us out tonight on bringing aloha back to the road.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what I was saying about just take a little more time, show a little bit of grace when you're driving. Remember that it's not your road. You're not entitled to this lane. You're not entitled to this space. Driving is a privilege. It's not your right. We all have to work together to ensure everyone makes it home safely, right? Your irresponsibleness or your recklessness or your disregard for everyone around you has catastrophic effects that it's not just you're risking everybody around you, their family, their future, right? And it's all because you're just too irresponsible or too impatient or just don't care enough, right? So bring back that care, bring back that aloha, bring back that patience.
Thank you so much for that. Mahalo to you for joining us tonight. Of course, we thank our guest, Ed Sniffen, Director of the Hawaii DOT, John Nouchi, Deputy Director at the city's DOT, Lola Irvin, at the Chronic Disease and Prevention and Health Promotion Division at the Department of Health, and Major James Slayter, Commander of HPD's Traffic Division. Coming up on Insights, the state has mandated that 30% of the food served in Hawaii schools be locally sourced by 2030. How close are we to actually reaching the goal? Join us for that conversation next week. I'm Yanji Denise for Insights on PBS Hawaiʻi. Aloha.
Local broadcasts of Insights on PBS Hawaiʻi are made possible by the support of viewers like you. Mahalo, and by Carl Smith Ball, providing legal services throughout Hawaii